Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. Today we're gonna talk about tea resin. Thank you Kelsey for commenting and raise this very interesting topic. In this video, I'd like to address first, what is tea resin? And I also want to talk about some interesting claims that I think is questionable, and also share with you my take on this. Without further ado, let's get started. Tea resin, and sometimes you might see it as tea paste or tea cream. These are translations of the Chinese word Chago. Cha means tea. Gao is an interesting word. The base meaning, the very fundamental meaning of this word is lard or fat, like animal fat. For people nowadays, when we hear that, we might be like, ew, fat. But for thousands and thousands of years ago, this is something precious and beautiful. Later on, the meaning of this character extends to mean something fat-like, very thick, and sometimes almost paste-like stuff. For example, toothpaste, Yagao, or in Chinese traditional medicine, we have gaofang, some kind of a really thick paste-like essence that we drink in the winter. Another meaning of this word is essence. Why am I telling you all this? Because this is a word that has a very positive connotation. So as a Chinese, if you don't know what Chago is, by seeing these two characters together, it gives you the feeling that this is some concentrated essence, the good stuff. And in some English articles and posts I read, it also trying to express this kind of concept of tea resin. What is tea resin or tea paste? Simply speaking, it's a concentrated tea, almost like an instant tea. So when you drink it, you put that in the water and it's pretty much ready to go. Even though sometimes translated as a cream or paste, it is actually a solid form. I think resin might be more close to what it actually look like. It can come in different shapes, but most common you will see them in this kind of a square shape. Traditionally, Chago is made with shu pu'er, or sometimes with shen pu'er as well. But nowadays, with new development, there are Chago made with black tea. Now let's talk about some interesting statements about Chago that I read on English website. To be honest, I only did a quick search and read some top results. First, let's quickly talk about history. Some people say that Chago is a very ancient thing that dates all the way back to Tang Dynasty, Song Dynasty. Wrong. Sorry, but that is very not historically prudent. I see that as a marketing thing to give people the impression that this is a really ancient traditional process, but it is not. When the character Cha and character Gao are associated and appeared on Cha Jing, doesn't mean that's what we're talking about today. The Chago we're familiar today, the process can date back to Qing Dynasty. Second, I saw in some TikTok or I forgot where, mentioning that they use the finest tea leaves to make Chago, which is very not likely because of the process. It's like somebody tell you we use the finest wine to make cocktail. You know, for me that kind of put a ceiling on how good this wine is, so maybe you have different interpretation. Of course, the finest, everybody might have a different interpretation too. Usually in the industry, people won't use the finest leaf to make Chago. Third is the health benefit, the medicinal use of Chago. This mostly comes from the book called 本草纲目食饮. In chapter 6, it mentioned that Chago is great to aid digestion, and it can help with some minor cuts, and there are other functions as well. But currently, Chago is not recognized as a traditional Chinese herb and is not included in the Food and Herb Directory. However, this doesn't negate that it can help with digestion. In Chago, because it's a concentration of usually shupuer tea, the concentration of theobromine is quite high, and theobromine is known to help with digestion, especially with fat like cholesterol. However, this concentration also affects the content of other chemicals. Well, since we talk about concentration, let's take a pause on the chemical side and quickly talk about the process of making Chago. Traditionally, there are two steps. First, condensation. Second, molding, shaping. Make that into that square shape and let it dry. Now, usually people talk about three steps. First, boil, putting a lot of leaves in the water and boil the tea for a while. Then take the leaves out, concentrate the remaining liquid till it gets really pasty and thick, then eventually dry this. There's an additional step called aging, according to some people suggesting it has to wait for a year to consume it. This concentrating boiling process takes quite a while. And some people says this condensation most naturally leads to a more potent form of pu'er. Personally, I cannot agree with that. Of course, this sentence can refer to talking about brewing ratio, potent, which I would say yes, because if we use 1 grain of the resin to 100 ml of water, that would be very concentrated. However, somehow reading the posts and the articles, I feel like this kind of claim has more implication regarding health benefits. Well, first, there are very limited studies on Chago because it's not a major product. In the studies I've read, probiotics and active substance of shupuer are pretty much killed in the process, especially this traditional boiled down process. Tea polyphenol, amino acid, theaflavins, theorubicins, these are also significantly lowered. So I don't see Chago as the super concentrated essence of all the good stuff. It has some chemicals that are raised up and many are lost in this process. So it's pros and cons. Right. I also saw on Reddit to teach people how to make Chago at home. The recipe include, I think, 1 cup of tea leaves, 1 cup of water. Anyway, they add 1 cup of sugar. So if we're just talking about regular traditional concept of Chago, there is no sugar added. There shouldn't be anything added. But if you're making that at home and you prefer to put some sugar in, it's totally fine. Or when you're drinking Chago, you want to add milk or sugar, it's totally up to you. So to drink a Chago, you can put 1 gram of Chago with 500 to 600 milliliter of water, and once it's fully dissolved, you can drink it. Another interesting thing that one of the posts share is that in 1950, Chinese government commissioned a Yunnan company to make Chago for the army people who are going to Tibet, to provide them nutrition and as fiber. And I was, why this story? I guess what's the purpose of this story? I guess is to tell people that Chago is quite nutritious. I'm not sure, but let me complete this story because there's the other half. That they initially wanted 3,000 kg of the Chago, and they experiment and made the Chago for about 1,000 kg, and nobody liked it, so they abandoned the whole project after all. So the remaining 2,000 kilograms of Chago wasn't even made. So far, you probably feel like I'm pretty negative about Chago. Well, I'm not. So I think if you've never tried Chago and if you're curious, go ahead, try it. It's interesting. It doesn't taste quite like pu'er. It tastes, I think, closer to dark tea, and it's just interesting. Like I was mentioning, as a tea taster, I like to try all different things. You know, the dirt in boreal forest tastes quite different than the dirt in the deciduous forest. For me, I'm interested in trying everything. So I highly recommend, if you haven't tried it, go ahead and try some. And hopefully you're not paying a big price for that. What I'm negative about or not very interested about is the whole marketing fluff about that. Talk about medicinal use, health benefit, set the right expectation, I think is important. Talk about the convenience. I don't know, it's still something. Water, brewing regular tea leaves is still leaf with water. So I personally didn't think that was such a step up in terms of make things easier. Then there is this kind of strong impression that this is the essence, this is so precious, because they use how much kilograms of tea leaves for how many hours to make this, how many grams of Chago. That's the part that I personally don't agree with as much. The Chago market manufacturing is very a little bit chaotic. It's still in the phase of organizing, and the standard is they're making standard, and there are people trying to make better Chago by innovating different process. The very common trend in the industry I see is adding some enzymes. This enzymatic treatment can help Chago maintain a lot of nutrition from the tea leaves. This is especially helpful with some key index such as tea polyphenol, tea polysaccharides, and amino acids. These are industry standards to evaluate the quality of the tea, where in tea resin it is very low. But with this kind of enzymatic treatment, they can raise the amount by quite a lot. A few other innovative ways to make Chago more nutritious also include use the latest ultrasonic treatment when abstract the nutrition from the tea leaves, and lowering the pen temperature and the abstraction time to maintain more nutrition in the final Chago. These are very interesting things happening in the Chago area. But if you're seeing people showing how many hours of a boil, traditional process, and marketing it as a really essence, super nutritious kind of stuff, I personally don't agree at all. We've always been sampling different Chago and has been always stay up to date with what's happening, and we see a lot of improvement from early times, early in the 2000s till now. There's improvement in taste, in quality for sure, but I don't see us carrying Chago in ZhenTea in the near future, because at ZhenTea we do tasting grade Chinese tea. In terms of the taste of the Chago, it's still quite flat and needs some improvement. Well, this is it for today's video. Kelsey, I hope you answered your question. If I missed something about the Chago you'd like to learn more, just let me know. And if you are someone who is quite familiar or have your own thoughts to share about this topic, please leave a comment below. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep steeping.